Engage your brain and enter the mind's eye. I'm your host, Brian Turnoff, and you're listening to Z Talk Radio. In celebration of the Mind's Eye second year, and since it is 2015 and all, we recently got ourselves into the Twitterverse. So check out the brand new Mind's Eye Twitter account at Mind's Eye Show. News, pictures, politics, science, sports, more, all the spice of life. All at the Mind's Eye Twitter at Mind's Eye Show. Last week we rediscovered some of the many secrets of the Great Pyramid and ancient Egypt. On this edition, we continue our trek into the mysterious and the secretive with return guest Jean-Louis de Biasi. He is a 32-degree Freemason, as well as a researcher and specialist in Masonic rituals, practices, esoteric degrees, and Egyptian Hermetic Freemasonry. Jean-Louis will help us uncover the fascinating truth behind Freemasonry, featured from his book, Secrets and Practices of the Freemasons. We're talking Freemasons' true origins, philosophy, founding fathers, sacred symbolism, and so much more with Jean-Louis de Biasi. And without further ado, it's great to have you back on the show again, Jean-Louis. I really appreciate coming back. And how was the rest of your 2014?
Thank you. My pleasure to be there and to speak with you about these subjects. I am good. Thank you very much.
Oh, I can't wait to talk about it. And as we talked before we started the show, we know that Masonry is the idea of it, the concept of it from the outsider. It's a bit convoluted, and we both know that we're Master Masons. You're much higher than I am, and so I'm really excited to give the listener a kind of a more of a true and even a deeper portrayal of the organization, because for whatever reason people think that Freemasons are a mysterious group of conspirators who secretly control America and so forth, and obviously we know that that's a bit ridiculous. And so in your book, Secrets and Practices of the Freemasons, you try to really make that certain distinction that the Masons aren't a secret organization, but rather an organization of secrets. So what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, Freemasonry is still a secret organization in some parts of the world. In the United States, we are free to say that we are Freemason, to show that we are Freemason. This is not the case in several parts like Europe, Middle East, and so on. This is still dangerous to say that you are a Freemason. Because Freemasonry has a specific philosophy, and this philosophy can be seen as dangerous for political powers. So yes, we still are a secret society, but not in a sense of hidden Illuminati trying to govern the world. This is not true. Of course not.
I didn't realize that Freemasons still had a bit of a negative connotation in Europe. There was this thing that recently came out, maybe within the past couple of years. I don't know the truth of it, but they were trying to start a bill where, I think maybe in England, where all Freemasons had to identify themselves.
Yes, it was the case in Italy 20 years ago. Every names of Freemason have been published in the newspaper saying all these people are trying to govern the country. In the Middle East, you can be challenged and you can die for being a Freemason, even today. So because there is a history of free thinking, and this history of free thinking is dangerous for any power. But in the same time, Freemasonry is interesting because this is a philosophy, a very ancient one, we can talk about that, but in the same time, Freemasonry can be exoteric and esoteric. And most of the time, Freemasonry, you can see all around you, is just the exoteric aspect. A beautiful organization with beautiful jewels, everyone applauding everyone, and that's it. But you can find something else if you try to go forward.
Yeah, and I think that's what we're really going to focus on for this show, the esoteric aspect of it. But I think what's probably best for the listeners is to maybe even talk a little bit of the exoteric aspect, maybe starting what's perceived with the history. So before we talk about like the Egyptian Freemasonry aspect of it, let's talk about its current form. Share the origin of what's considered modern Freemasonry today.
Modern Freemasonry appeared in UK in 1717, but this aspect regarding the legend, Freemasonry is coming from the builders of the cathedrals and so on from Europe, and progressively this Freemasonry became a place of discussion about philosophy, about religion, and without any fight or war between the beliefs of every brothers. But this aspect is today different. Most of the time, Freemasonry today in the United States and all around the world, it's quite different in Europe. This is a place to meet brothers around a ritual, a common ritual, and think about the way to become better men and to manifest an efficient philanthropy all around us and in the country. So this is the most important part of Freemasonry today. In Europe, this is quite different because you have the same aspect, but plus you have still lectures, you have research, discussions inside the lodge. You can find that in the United States, but not everywhere. This is rare. In Europe, this is more present. So this difference can be seen, but most of the time, this is the work. Every Freemason is saying to you that you are learning to become a better man. I am not sure that this is the only place to do that. You can do that at church, you can do that in reading ancient philosophy, but here in Freemasonry, you have a common ritual. You share something, you share an experience, you share a memory, an heritage, and this is interest. This is the exoteric aspect for me.
Yeah, I definitely couldn't agree more with that. You know, particularly with the idea of that. For me personally, the reason why I joined the Masons was the fact that it was religionless. It didn't really matter where your religion lies in your belief system in that, as long as the fact that, I guess the major philosophical underpinning is that you just believe in a God or so to speak. And
yeah, the exact definition, usually you must believe in the existence of a supreme being. And you have several ways to try a definition of the supreme being. And when you are trying to discuss about that, you are beginning the work of an esoteric aspect of Freemasonry. That means you can say the supreme being is God. Okay, God is a beautiful word, a beautiful name. Who knows what is the exact definition? You can say also, and many Masonic texts are using this definition, this is a great architect of the universe. Okay? In this case, you can say, okay, this is a creator of the universe, but this is a great architect. Other authors are saying, for example, this is not the great architect of the universe, this is a great architecture of the universe. So there are several ways to say that. And regarding Grand Lodges, few Grand Lodges are asking for more. Few Grand Lodges are asking for a belief in the God you can find in the Bible. So in this case, if you are not Christian, you cannot be part of Freemasonry. But in other Grand Lodges, you can. Because as you said at the beginning, and this is true, the Supreme Being is open to every faith. Maybe not in India, if you believe in several gods and goddesses, I don't know.
It doesn't. Well, since that's the basic foundation, one of the basic underpinnings of Freemasonry, that you can just join. You can join it as long as you really believe in the supreme being, and you get to define it. And no religion's going to define it for you. It's really an individual. It's a subjective thing, and I really appreciate that about it. So I'm just wondering, more. This is going to be more of a personal side question. How do you define the great architect of the universe, or God? Since you did join Freemasonry, that does mean you believe in God. How do you define God, so to speak?
You ask a question that, and I need several books to talk about that and try to explain how I can explain in a few words God or the supreme architect of the universe. It is quite impossible. What I can say is that what I love in the philosophy of Freemasonry is this idea of power, invisible power, that is maybe transcendent or immanent, that means part of the creation. And so I believe as a Freemason, as the cosmos as an order. This is not a chaos, this is an order. There is something you can explain, try to explain. You can try to explain the way the world is working with faith or with science. But Freemasonry at the beginning, and this is a beautiful part of Freemasonry, was a place where everyone was able to talk, scientists, believers, and so on, without any fear of everything. We can share, challenge everyone, and saying, you believe in God, I don't believe. What do you think? Even if this is just an idea, but try to challenge my brother, because I know that I don't fear anything. And it was at a time with religious wars and so on, so it was great. And today we are exactly in the same situation. We can look all around us and we see what religions are doing. It's not always good. So find a place we can share these essential questions about life, death, and so on is paramount. This is important. And we must reintroduce in the lodges discussions, challenges, discussions about these essential questions. This is not enough to say, we are Freemason, we are focused on essential questions, but this is forbidden to talk about politics, about religion, about beliefs, about anything. So, okay, so what can you do? How you can go forward, how you can challenge what you think if you never speak about what is essential.
I couldn't agree more with that, and I think that, to me, like you, the lodge, the Freemason Lodge, would be the perfect place to talk about politics and religion, these highly charged, debative issues, because you can come at it from, it seems to me when I'm in the lodge, there seems to be less of an ego and more of an openness, and that's one of my biggest bones to pick with Freemasonry as a Freemason, is that we can't really talk about politics and we can't talk about religion, even though the founding fathers who were Freemasons of America, they would probably be rolling in their grave if they knew that. It's hard for me to believe that they had that within their own lodges, in a sense. That had to be a big...
I'm not sure about that, because the founding fathers were always talking about religion, politics, and so on, and even in lodges. Benjamin Franklin was a master of the 2 lodges in France, and he was talking with others like Voltaire and so on, and they were talking about politics, about religion. And maybe we have to begin by religion, because maybe this is the heart of the tradition. But if we are eager to speak about everything like that, that means we need esoterists. We need to unveil the mysteries. We need to go forward. And we have not to be shy about that. This is just dangerous for the mind because we have to accept the vision of someone different from us. If we are in a place, a lodge, in which everyone is the same, this is not interesting. And the point at the beginning in the lodge was to have different point of views and to speak about that and to try to find the real roots. We can dream about Knights Templar, we can dream about pyramids, we can dream about everything. But what is the heart of the tradition? And what are the roots? And how we can use it to unveil the mysteries and really to begin an inner work. Because the point is, yes, to speak about everything, but in the same time to begin a real inner work. And my question is always the same in Freemasonry. How you do that? How?
And I think that's
Everybody
what
is saying that we have tools. Okay, but how you use these tools? This is what I am talking in the book. We have tools, yes. These tools are visible by everyone, Masons and non-Masons. Okay, so how to use it? And why?
because that's what it's,
Nobody is using them.
and what you have to be able to apply this philosophy. It's a great philosophy to say, but in reality, we need action. And as you were saying before, we have to move forward. But really, the only way we can do that is by looking back at our roots and our origin, in which what you do, and I really appreciate that. And I know you're a proponent of the idea that Freemasonry stems from ancient Western mysteries and its Hermetic and Qabalistic underpinnings. Talk about the relationship there.
Yes, you just said that Freemasonry has a very interesting philosophy and so on. So yes, there are two aspects, philosophy and rituals. If we forget for a moment the philanthropic aspect, which is essential, we can consider philosophy and rituals. First, we have to define which philosophy, because everyone is talking about Masonic philosophy, but what is this Masonic philosophy?
Right.
What do you have to learn and to understand? Because if you just need a sacred book, for most of the time it's the Bible. In this case, why do you need Freemasonry? Because you go to church, you have the Bible, you are talking about the Bible, you have commentaries about the Bible, and what is the need of Freemasonry in this case?
Right.
So that means you maybe there is another level of philosophy that is not evident at the beginning. So we can go forward and try to find another philosophy. And when you dig like that, you can see that Freemasonry is not coming from the Middle Age or is not coming from the 18th century. The first to write about Freemasonry is a Roman architect called Vitruvius. And this Roman architect is the first to connect morals and the work of architecture. I am not talking about builders, but architecture. And in Freemasonry, you have these two aspects. And it was the first time. So you can see if a Roman like him was talking about morals, it was not at this time a biblical moral. It was a Roman moral. So what kind of morals? This is the question we have to answer if we want to go forward in Freemasonry and to understand what it is about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it seems that you've been able to trace specifically at least an ancient Egyptian and an ancient Western mystery influence on modern day Masonry and the foundings of it. Can you talk about that relationship a little bit more? How Ancient Egypt plays into it?
Yes, when I speak about Vitruvius, for example, which is a Roman, and I am really interested by rituals. If I forget a few minutes, the modern Masonic rituals, and I'm trying to imagine a Roman of this time, it was around 15 BC, trying to find the divine and think about the great architect of the universe and this order of the cosmos. What I can see is there is a group in ancient Rome called Mithraism. And this group was a real secret society restricted to men and using temples underground. And when you read that, you said, okay, what kind of temples? What are they doing at this time? And this is maybe a surprise to discover that these temples are exactly the shape of the Masonic temples today. They are rectangular, they have two columns, the brothers, people who are received after the initiation as brothers are on the two sides of the temple, the master of the lodge or the temple, Mitrium, is in the east, guardians are in the west. You can find exactly the same sky of the temple, and the temple is dark because this is a cave underground. And in my book I speak about that very extensively because there is a real connection. Even the degrees are interesting. They are 7 degrees. All the degrees are related to planets, to the zodiac, and so on. So you can see a real connection. And this is when you are in a Masonic lodge and someone telling you this is a representation of the temple of Solomon Temple. Compare the Mitrium and the Masonic temple and the Solomon Temple, and you will see. In fact, this is obvious. This is a Roman temple, the Roman temple of the mysteries. So yes, this is not Egyptian regarding the architecture on this aspect, but this is interesting to see this connection. And there are even connections on the philosophical level. If I may, I can read a very short quotation from someone called Plotinus.
Please.
Okay with you?
Oh, please. It'll definitely help explain what we're talking about.
Yes. Plotinus.
And yeah, explain who he was before you tell the quotes, though.
He was a philosopher, and said, "Withdraw into yourself and look. And if you do not find yourself beautiful yet, act as does the creator of a statue that is to be made beautiful. He cuts away here, he smooths there, he makes this line lighter, this other purer, until a lovely face has grown upon his work. So do you also cut away all that is excessive, straighten all that is crooked, bring light to all that is overcast, labor to make all one glow of beauty, and never cease chiseling your statue, until there shall shine out on your front is the godlike splendor of virtue, until you shall see the perfect goodness surely established in the stainless shrine." So he's talking about you as a statue. As a statue, you must unveil, in fact.
And that's...
This is really interesting.
And that seems to be the essentially what Freemasonry is all about, is just making yourself better and making the world better. And I don't think anyone can necessarily be an opponent of such an idea. And this one might be kind of a little bit out of left field since we're talking about connections to Egypt and ancient mystery tradition. Someone recently told me I was going to interview you, so they said I have to ask this question. Have you ever heard anything that Jesus Christ was an initiated Freemason, of so to speak, and that he was initiated actually in the Great Pyramid?
This is what I love in Freemasonry and in ancient mysteries, that you can mix legend and questions and...
It's like a telephone game half the time.
I really don't know, and I cannot answer to this question. I read books, yes, several books telling that, explaining that Jesus was an initiate, and Spencer Lewis, founder of the Amor, said that too. But this is interesting to use these legends and in the same time to keep in mind a very scientific approach that you can prove, really. And even if there is a connection like that, I cannot see any connection between the philosophy of the Gospels, you can find in the Gospels, and the Egyptian philosophy. There is no connection. There is nothing identical.
Okay.
Nothing. Because when you have the priesthood in ancient Egypt, when you have when you read the sacred books talking about, yes, architects, mysteries, and so on, nothing is similar. Yes, you can say Egyptian priests were talking about divinity, about the divinity, about the gods and the goddesses. They were talking about the way to become better. So you can say, okay, this is the same thing. Yes, but all centuries, everyone was talking the same way. So you have to compare rituals, and the rituals were different.
Okay.
So I am really not sure. Even, when I traveled in Egypt, I went into the Great Pyramid during the night, and I spent, at this time it was still possible with the right connection, and I spent, most of the night inside the Great Pyramid, and it was amazing, of course. I am not Jesus, but I can say that this is a real initiation to be in this place alone for hours. Yes, this is amazing. So this is an experience, and maybe he had this experience, but the connection after between the philosophy, no, I'm not sure about that.
When you're actually in the Great Pyramid, and I've never been there, and it's something I've always wanted to do. Did it have any qualities that scream to you Freemasonry?
Maybe not the Great Pyramid. In the Great Pyramid, you can have strong, amazing experience, like out-of-body experience. You have nothing to do for that. You have just to be there alone for a few hours, and you have this experience. You have nothing to do. And I remember that the effects of this experience continued to... I felt this effect a few hours and days after. Wow. It was powerful, really. And it opened something in my mind. But really the connection with Freemasonry can be found can be found in the books, like the Book of the Dead, the Book of the Portals. You have several books. I will give the links or the books on my personal website, and you will be able to find these books. They are very, very interesting.
Why don't you
these books? Yes.
I would say, why don't you give out the links in case any listener right now wants to kind of check it out while you're talking about it.
Yes, you go on my personal website, debiasi.org, and I will provide all the links or even the PDF books. Feel free to send me an email about that, and I will answer as soon as possible about that. And when you open this book, I was surprised to find exactly questions and answers as a Masonic modern instruction. You have someone, a priest, asking to an initiate, can you tell me the name of this door? Can you tell me the name of these columns? And the initiate gives the name, and the initiate can continue his path, and so on. And you have like that pages and pages of explanations. But in the same time, you have a connection with the instruction, the Masonic instruction, but you understand the meaning and the goal. Because when a Mason receives a Masonic instruction, questions, answers, and so on, what is the purpose? What is the goal? Just to memorize? Maybe a good exercise. But what is the purpose of that? And in fact, in this Egyptian text, you know the purpose. The purpose is to be able to cross the death and to become immortal. That means your soul will continue to exist on the other level and will be able to meet the divinities and to be enlightened. And these questions, these answers, these sacred words are essential, not because you have to memorize something, but just because you need them when you will die. And if you didn't memorize the right words, the sacred and sacred words, you will be in trouble. So the real esotericism of Freemasonry is not to memorize these historical texts, sometimes stupid, sometimes interesting, but to understand that this process is a copy of an ancient process, and maybe we have to learn more about this ancient process, because this is absolutely essential for everyone, because we will all die.
Definitely. And for those just joining us, I'm talking with Jean-Louis Biasi, 32 Degree Freemasonry, on his book Secrets and Practices of the Freemasons. And we talked a lot about just the origin, and obviously I don't think we'll ever be able to give a singular point of origin for Freemasonry, but we can see that there's a lot of similarities in the ancient Western mystery traditions and Egyptian. So I don't think that's really arguable. You can't really argue that. But I want to skip forward. Oh no, what were we going to say? No, please.
I agree with you. When we are trying to find an origin to Freemasonry, we have to make a distinction. If you are doing this work as an historian, this is very easy. This is very easy, fast, and you will find on internet, on Wikipedia, something in a few minutes. This is precise and quite definitive. If you are not looking about the origin as an historian, but as an archaeologist, now you have to compare what you have, symbols, temples, and so on, with what you can find in the past. In this case, you will find Mithraism, Egypt, and different things like that. And after, you have to do the same work, trying to find the origins on the point of view of the rituals. And in this case, you will find that few rituals are coming from, yes, the 18th century, but others are coming from far earlier, in ancient Rome or even ancient Egypt. Not the full ritual, but good parts of the ritual and different symbols. And we have to keep in mind that, and this is maybe difficult in the United States to understand that, because in the United States we have most of the time one or two different rituals. That's it.
Yeah,
but in other parts of the world, Europe for example, you have several different rituals. Some are Egyptian, others are more regular than the other, others are Templar, and so on. I'm not talking about high degrees, I'm talking about the Blue Lodges. the first, second, and third degree. And these rituals are sometimes different. And this is something very, very interesting to compare these rituals and to see what is coming from Egypt, from Rome, from the Middle Age, and so on. This is a real interesting experience. But even in this case, you have a common ritual performed in a lodge, and you can use few parts of these rituals as an inner work, as an individual and private ritual, as a meditation, for example. And this is not usually taught in the lodges. And I wrote about that in my book. Maybe a third of the book is about that. It was maybe the first time published in English about this point.
And that's really important when we have these. When I have these type of interviews, when we talk about these type of really maybe difficult concepts or philosophical concepts. A lot of times it's really hard to have anything that's real, that's tangible, that's applicable. So in your book, I know you talked about actual techniques that people can use, which you just touched on. So just share one or two that maybe the listener can even use right after the show.
Yes. The first key, maybe the first essential key, is visualization. It's called visualization. The ancient mysteries and Western mysteries, there is a hidden key. And I repeat this word because it is important. This is visualization. What that means? That means you can close your eyes and recreate in your mind a specific representation, a specific symbol, a specific word, and so on. So this is visualization, a mental representation, not just visual. You have just to focus your mind on a symbol or representation. So let's imagine that you have a temple in front of you. You are inside the temple, and you see a triangle in the east with the letter G inside. Mm-hmm. Nobody is talking about that, but this is a symbol, a very easy symbol. As soon as you think about the representation, this symbol is beginning to be alive in your mind and will bring you few insights on its meaning. And this is just a symbol. You have to do that for everything around you. You can do that if you are a Mason, you can do that if you are not a Mason, because you have just to go on the internet, on a book, on my book, and you will find several symbols, quite everything. So everyone can do this work. And when you visualize the place like that, the temple, this is the beginning of a real meditation. You are alone, you are maybe at home, and you recreate all around you a sacred space. And in this sacred space, you are trying to find yourself, because you are in peace. And in the same time, the presence of the symbols all around you will provide you power and a direction to your visualization. But if you are not doing that, if you are just performing rituals in a lodge, participating in a lodge, nothing happens. Nothing. You are like in a profane place, just sharing a good moment with brothers, and that's it. But this is not an inner transformation.
Right.
This is just a moment, a good moment with brothers and friends. If you want to discover what is esotericism in Freemasonry, you have to introduce meditation, visualization inside your own practice, and maybe, if everyone is open, inside a temple. You have the choice to sleep or to meditate.
I love that idea. I think, like we said, having something practical, applicable, and tangible is so necessary. I'd love to see, maybe a form of meditation or any meditation incorporated into lodge meetings. I think that would be really fascinating experience. I know in America, in my experience, that's not really part of it. But you've been all over the world. Is there any parts that do incorporate that?
Not very often. Not very often. Sometimes in some lodges, usually Egyptian Freemasonry, you can find some approach, but not too much. We have to focus on that. We have to promote this idea. But this is like anything. This is a meditation. This is a visualization. You have to learn how to do that. I know how to do that because I learned that elsewhere, and I use the keys I know in Freemasonry. So this is not provided by Freemasonry, but Freemasonry is the perfect place to use that, and you can improve this tradition by providing these keys. If someone is performing a ritual just symbolic, this is interesting, but this is not enough to do something. When you are trying to build something, when you are trying to engrave a stone, you need tools, and you need not just to contemplate the tools, you need to use them. And most of the time in Freemasonry, everyone is saying, we have symbols around us, and they are wonderful. Yes, but what else? They are beautiful, maybe. I don't know. Square, compass are beautiful. I don't know if this is exciting today. But what can you do with that? How you can do that?
Well, I think we have to be proponents of making sure that this is incorporated into it. And I want to skip forward a little bit to modern day Masonry, or not really even talk about modern day Masonry, but maybe sacred symbolism a little bit more, and relate that to the founding fathers of America. And you use Dan Brown's novel in your book kind of as a guiding point to talk about the discrepancies between what he writes about as Freemasonry and what we know about Freemasonry in DC. So let's get on that for a little bit. Talk about the founding fathers and how their relationship with Freemasonry and the outlining of DC.
Yeah, it was a real surprise for me to discover all that, and this is not obvious. You have to dig to try to find clues everywhere. So the novel is a novel, and in the novel, Dan Brown novel, it's not so easy to see what is really interesting and important in DC. But when the Washington DC was created, I was surprised to discover several things. For example, the shape of the District of Columbia. I wrote an article about that called the Hidden Pyramid in Washington DC, and it was a surprise to see this shape, this perfect square all around Washington DC, and the dimension of this square, and to see that as in the past, this square is marked by stones you can find, and there is a specific number of stones like that. If I well remember, this is 40 stones they used for that. 40 stones, markers planted in the ground all around the District of Columbia. And this square is well oriented, north, south, east, west. So I said, what is exactly, if we are in a pyramid, if we are in a square, what is in the middle, exactly at the center of this perfect square? And there is just an altar. This is a stone you can see on the mall in Washington. This is called the Jefferson Stone. And this stone is a pyramid. You can go on this place, and this is really the center of the stone, just close to the Washington Monument. And when you are in front of this altar, you are really, really in the center of this square and this pyramid. And when I read the text of the Roman Vitruvius, I was surprised to see that when it described the perfect Roman city, he was talking about that. He was talking about a large open space, and this large open space will be surrounded by the temple of the gods and the temple of the different divinities, the divinity of the war, the divinity of Mercury, and so on. And the position of these temples described by Vitruvius, this is around 40 BC. The description is exactly what we have. We have in the east, so the capital in the east, exactly this beautiful monument, the Library of Congress, so the Jefferson, perfect Jefferson Place, Temple of Mercury just beside, and inside this place, and in these places you have always in Washington DC, zodiacs everywhere. So this is a real transposition, if you want, of these ancient texts, because the founder, Pierre Charles L'Enfant, Jefferson, was crazy. They were crazy about this heritage. They were always reading things. Jefferson was drawing ancient temples, copying the design, the architecture, so we can see exactly the same thing in Washington DC.
Wow, that's...
And if this shape is true, you have a place with a specific power. So this is not just something symbolic. This is what esotericism is about. We are not talking just about symbol. We are talking about powers, invisible powers. And this is a way to concentrate an invisible power just in the middle of the country, symbolic middle of the country, and where the power is, in fact. White House, Library of Congress, and Congress itself. So this is beautiful.
So like you said, you were saying in the book that there are actual several gates in DC that allow a transfer of energy, for the spiritual plane. What do you mean by that, and where can I get some of that, quite frankly?
Yes. In the book, at the end of the book, I explain what you can do in Washington DC. If you travel in Washington DC, you can open my book and go in front of the White House and begin a strange travel. And you will go from the White House to the Jefferson Memorial, to the Lincoln Memorial, to the Congress, and so on, and you will progressively discover more and more about the country, about what kind of power is involved, why the United States are different. They are different because this power is maybe different, something more open. This is a power that welcomes any faith and that welcomes any understanding, new understanding of the cosmos, of everything. This place is trying to connect people to something superior, something spiritual. It's not always obvious, I know. But this is the purpose of such symbolism. And if you walk on the moor like that with the book, and I provided a few ancient prayers, Masonic prayers you can use. You go to the Jefferson Memorial and you can use a few texts, a few Masonic prayers, and just enjoy the place. You relax, you breathe, you open your mind to the place, and you read these words. And I am sure that intimately you will be connected to the founding fathers, and you will maybe not understand, but feel what was essential at this time. That means tolerance, open mind, and trying to achieve something better.
And to be able to do that, I don't know if you're familiar with, there's this idea of power lines that run across the whole world,
Yes.
ley lines. And there's the rumor that many Grand Lodges of throughout the world are actually built on top of ley lines, maybe even for that specific purpose. What's your opinion on that matter?
I don't believe that about the Grand Lodges all around the world, but I strongly believe that about Washington D.C. And the first thing, if you live in this area, or if you can visit this place, go to one of the stone markers. And these 40 stone markers have been put exactly at the right place. And if you want to see, to understand, to feel what is a ley line, go in the center of the mall, exactly at the center of the square of Washington, of the District of Columbia. And this orientation of the mall is really on purpose. And this is why this invisible power that you cannot demonstrate on the scientific point of view,
No, of course
but you can
not.
feel it. You can feel it, and in this case, what is perfect, you can demonstrate. You have just to open the map to see the orientation, to go in the center of the mall, and this is just true. So yes, you need after small ritual, prayers, meditation, breathing, and you will feel more and more. But there is a real shape and a real place in which you can be. And in this case, the ley lines were really carefully chosen for Washington D.C. Maybe elsewhere, because in Egypt this is the case, in Greece this is the case, in Italy this is the case too. But the Grand Lodges, not always.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to be. I mean, you really can't prove something like that. Unfortunately, that's just there's just no way to do that. And
Yes, you can.
you think? Well,
No, I mean, what you can prove is the orientation. That means if you take a map, this is in direction to the east and west or not.
in that sense, yes, I meant in regard to the ley lines. That's just something that's unprovable. I wanted to hear your opinion on it, and we only have a couple more minutes, but there's something that I found really interesting. You're connected to a couple other secret societies or traditionals in that regard. The Ordo Aurum Salis. Sorry if I'm butchering this, and then the Qabalistic Order of the Rosicross, and those traditions, quote unquote, use magic. What do they mean by having a system of magical philosophy?
Yes, these two initiatic orders are different. Their traditions, their rituals are different. But yes, you are true. They are using what I call magic or high magic. That means theurgy. And what is theurgy? In few words, this is an activation in a ritual of symbols. So in every ritual, like Freemasonry, you are using symbols all around you in the temple, maybe in your hands, like wand or sword and so on. And this is a symbol as long as you are doing nothing in your inner being. But if you begin a real transformation, a real work using breathing, visualization, prayer, invocation, at this time you are beginning an inner work. That means you are activating something on the ritual level. And with this activation, you have two solutions. First, doing magic. That means you are using these tools to achieve a specific purpose, a specific goal. I want money, I perform a ritual to obtain money. This is in the invisible level. This is not what I am doing. This is not the goal of these initiatic orders. Theurgy is working quite in the same way, but when you are using these tools, the only goal is to ascend to the divine. To using these tools to ascend to the divine and to connect to the highest level you can reach, and to prepare your soul, to enlighten your soul. And this is the purpose of high magic or theurgy. I prefer this word. And so yes, anyone who is using symbols can perform a kind of theurgy. But this is not magic because the purpose is to ascend to the divine. This is the difference. I hope this is clear.
Well, it's going to get as clear as it's going to get for for some of the listeners. We'll have to come back and really have a whole show dedicated to that idea, because I could talk about that for hours upon hours. But unfortunately, yeah, we don't really have that time, so we'll have to have you on for another third time sometime later this year. And before I let you go, Jean-Louis, just give out your social media info for anyone, for yourself and the organizations that you're connected to.
Yes, so the first website you can use in my own website. This is debiasi.org, debiasi.org. You can go on Facebook and type my name and send me a friend request. On Facebook, this is my name, Jean-Louis Debiasi, Debiasi. And after that, the two orders are Aurum Solis, AURUMSOLIS.info and OKRC.org. So this is what you can use, but if you forgot something, just go on debiasi.org, debiasi.org, and you will find the different links.
Excellent, and of course,
and so on.
Well, and of course, we'll have that information posted on our website. And Jean-Louis Debiasi, it is just an absolute pleasure to have you on again, and I can't wait for the next one.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Wonderful. We'll be back in 45 seconds on The Mind's Eye. We're back on The Mind's Eye Show, Z Talk Radio. Got for the show wrap up. And for more information on our guest tonight, Jean-Louis Debiasi, you can check out our new Facebook page, facebook.com/Mind's Eye Show. One more time, facebook.com/Mind's Eye Show. So it turns out that this show turned into the second of an unexpected trilogy in how the ancient Egyptians, still influence us and boggle our mind. On the next Mind's Eye, it's going to be a groundbreaking episode as we present the first ever American media interview with Dominic Gorlitz. Who is Dominic Gorlitz, you ask? Well, he's an archaeologist and head of the Project Cheops II, which carried out research a little less than a decade ago into the Great Pyramid. And now, the findings, finally, the revelatory study are finally coming out. For more information on all our guests, not just tonight, the entire set of archives for free, and so much more, check out our main website, themindseyemedia.com. themindseyemedia.com. And as always, much appreciation to you, the listener. Join me next week as we complete our Egyptian trilogy. I'm your host, Brian Turnov. You've been listening to The Mind's Eye Show on Z Talk Radio.